Welcome to the Ogles channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game, and today we're going to focus on a game called Killer Instinct. Now, I never had Killer Instinct on the Game Boy growing up, but I did play it on the Super Nintendo pretty often because I'd go over to a friend's house, he'd rent it for the weekend, and we'd spend the weekend away playing. Now, I was never particularly good at the game, however, I always loved the game because the aesthetic for it, the atmosphere, the characters, they were all just so well designed. And the graphics were phenomenal for the time as well, and so the game was always a ton of fun to play, even if you weren't particularly good at the game. But how does the Game Boy version hold up compared to the SNES version? Now, this game actually got moved up in the queue sooner than later because a user known as Speedy commented on one of our earlier videos saying he wanted to see a review of Mortal Kombat, so naturally, we moved it to the front of the queue. If there's a game that you would like me to do a review on, let me know the name of the game in the comments down below, and just like Killer Instinct, I'll move it to the front of the queue. But let's go ahead and jump into Killer Instinct on the Game Boy. Now, I always like to start the reviews off by looking at the box art for the game. As we look at the box art for Killer Instinct, it's a really good box art. It has Fulgore right there in the center, who's the main character of the series. He's the main character on the SNES box. He's the image for Killer Instinct. He's got the logo right there in the middle, and the box art's great. It summarizes what the game's going to be about. It's got the awesome aesthetic to it. This is exactly what I'd want out of a box art for Killer Instinct. Now, when you start the game up here, you got a pretty flashy little intro. This game is made by Rare, who did Donkey Kong Land as well, and so they're going to be using a similar graphic system as Donkey Kong Land. But for the most part, I feel like they come across better on Killer Instinct because the sprites are so much larger than they were in Donkey Kong Land. But regardless, when you start the game up, a pretty flashy little intro here, and then it gives an intro to every single one of the characters that you can play as in the game. Gives their picture up there, a little summary of who they are, why they're in this tournament fighting, such as that, and there's a little demo of them playing, and then it goes back to the title screen, then does another little zoom in special on another character. And if you want to go through all the characters, it's going to take probably 10 minutes to go through all the characters. It's not a real speedy process, but it is effective as far as getting to know all the characters and why they're playing the game. Now, like I said, I've never been really good at the tournament fighter, so I left the difficulty on normal, which was the default setting, and I also went for the practice mode here, trying to just learn the basic controls. But the practice mode is just simply you fighting against another character who just doesn't move, and I guess that's really good to learn the controls. But I couldn't figure out any of the special moves, anything like that. But I did learn what punch and kick were, and I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump into the game and see how we do. Now, when choosing a character to go through the game as, I did choose Fulgore because, he's on the cover of the game here. He's the main character behind Killer Instinct. He's just so iconic. Why not play the game as him? So I loaded up. I get to the first stage here. I play against a character named Thunder. And let me tell you, I got destroyed on the very first match I ever played. I didn't know any of the special moves. They knew some of the special moves. And here I am getting destroyed. And there's really awesome looking little landscape here. A little bridge, like a little valley behind you. Great landscape, but myself was getting destroyed in this match. And I decided to play again. I really sort of simplified it down. Instead of trying to go for special moves, I just went more for punches and such, and I was able to finally win on the second time. I didn't have an easy time with it. It wasn't a good victory, but I did win on the second try. Then the second match is against Jago here, and Jago was once again significantly better than me, and I tried to do my basic moves, and it just didn't work at all, and I got destroyed. And I decided to look up what are the special moves for Fulgore. And I looked it up, and I'll put them on the screen right here. And holy cow, those are really hard moves to do. And I was like, this is beyond my skill level in this game. Let's find a character that suits my skill level a little bit better when it comes to the special moves. So I ended up swapping over to Glacius, and I like the way Glacius looks anyway. I always enjoyed winter aesthetics and winter characters and snow. So why not play as Glacius? So I picked Glacius, and I go into the match again, and just simply by the ease of the special moves, I was able to do a few of them, but not really consistently, but I was able to get at least some of the special moves out, and I was able to pull out a victory over Jago. Now the third match comes up, we're going against a fellow named Combo, and Combo is just sort of your typical boxer character. Even the background here is like a old boxing ring. And this is probably my least favorite battle because I never enjoy playing against characters that don't have any special abilities, and the background's so boring. It's just a normal human environment I could find. Just going to the local gym and I could see this particular background. But regardless, this battle here, pretty much similar to the last one. I did focus more on just sort of a straightforward punch, and it seemed to go a little bit better if I didn't attempt the special moves. But regardless, I beat this match first try, and then we move on to Orchid. And Orchid, once again, has a normal cityscape behind her, something I could see in everyday life, nothing too far out there. And the fight against Orchid, at least on a normal difficulty, wasn't too bad. I tended to focus more on the punching again. I didn't really get a lot of special moves out there, but I was realizing slowly that my punch is a really good steady move, and I can take like a quarter of their health away just by a straight combo punch over and over and over. And so I tend to focus more on that. And then we get to our next battle, which is against Saberwolf. And I gotta say, if I realized or remembered that Saberwolf was in the game, this is who I probably would have been playing as all along, because back when we used to play a Super Nintendo game, this was the character that I always flocked to. Because, I mean, he's an actual monster. He's a werewolf on here, and the background aesthetic is just so cool. I mean, it's got the entire, like, old medieval manor behind him. You know, got the little sword and shield crest behind him, the fireplace. This is the absolute best background in the entire game. The battle against Saberwolf himself really wasn't too hard. I tended to focus once again on mainly just my punch moves, and I did a few special moves here and there when I could get them out. But for the most part, the game is pretty easy, especially for a normal difficulty. But then I go against myself. I go Glacius against Glacius, and it really just sort of showed me like how bad I am at the game, or how I don't know any of my special moves very well, because he was doing these special moves constantly against me, and I was like, I had no idea that my character could even do some of these special moves. But regardless, he's doing all these special moves, and he completely decimates me here. And the second time it loaded up, I was like, you know what? The punch move is like, you know, served me so well throughout the game. I'm just going to forget the special moves, and I'm just going to focus on just getting that punch move in. So I get him against the side over here, and I just start punching away. And I mean, I just don't let up on it. They fall to the ground, they get back up, you resume the punches again. Every now and then you might want to try like a little sweeping kick, but for the most part, you just keep doing the punches over and over and over and over. And I didn't do any special moves. I didn't really do anything except the one punch move, and we destroyed him. We dominated the battle. And that's what I'm starting to realize, how powerful your single button punch move is in this game. And we're going to get to a second of just how powerful it is, but this is where we start realizing we have a real special move without even having a special move. And then we go up against Spinal, and Spinal is a really cool looking character. He was another one that I played with often on the Super Nintendo that I sort of forgot about, and I always loved the you know, the sword that he has here. But regardless, we did our punch move. The sword is no match for the punch, which doesn't make any sense, but regardless, we get in there, we just sort of punch away at the skeleton here, and we have Spinal defeated first try. Then, of course, the title character, Fulgore, comes up here, and Fulgore actually has some pretty cool special moves. We actually got to see some projectiles that he shoots out, which I never got to see when I was playing as him because I couldn't do any of the special moves. But regardless, he got some pretty cool special moves, but instead of trying to do our special moves back on him, I just fall into my normal little punch stance here, and we just sort of punch away at Fulgore, and we have him defeated first try. And then we move on to the final boss here, which is like a two-headed demon named Idol. And I think it's funny they actually spelled Idol instead of I-D-O-L. It's E-Y-E-D-O-L. I don't know, it's just sort of a... That's some funny little things in the games of this time period. Try to get these little puns in the game. And so we're going against Idol here. And he's a cool looking character. It's a little hard to see him on the Game Boy here. But regardless, the sprite is still large enough where we make out some of the details on him. And he's a pretty tough fighter, but for the most part, I just simply do that punch move again, and we have him defeated. And it looks like we actually do a special move on him at the end here. We do a little teleport move, and then we sort of knock him up in the air, and he falls down. And of course, that's when the game is over. And I thought for a while I actually did do a special move, but it turns out that's just like the end credits. You always do a special move on the last little battle here. But regardless, we get a little closing story about Glacius here. And of course, we get the credits rolling, and that's the game. I mean, it was super easy to go through on the normal difficulty. And you didn't really have to know any of your special moves at all, as long as you could do that punch move. But I got to thinking, how powerful is the punch move? Could I beat the game on the hardest setting and only use a punch move? No special moves, only the punch move. So I loaded up again, picked Glacius, very hard difficulty, jump in there, and every single battle, I didn't have a single game over. In most of the battles, I didn't even lose like a single life in it. We just went through every single battle, get them in the corner and just punch, 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 punch. They fall down, get back up, punch at them again, and of course we won every single battle in the game. Did not have a single continue with only doing the punch move on the hardest difficulty setting. And of course, when you beat the game on the hardest difficulty setting, you get a little special trophy here, got a little sword blade on there, a little katana it looks like, and of course you get like a little cheat code at the end. And I guess every time you beat the game on like different qualifications, you get different cheat codes. But the game, it's a little disappointing that you can beat the hardest difficulty setting by just punching. But at the same time, it does sort of take the fun out of it by not trying to learn special moves, see what your character can do, and things like that. I could see this game being a whole lot more fun, like the link cable, and actually battling against a friend. I could see that being like where this game would really shine. But as far as like the one-player mode, if you get yourself sort of in a corner, just resort back to the punch move, and you've got the entire game beat. But how does the game hold up outside of just being an overall really easy game? And I would say the game actually holds up better than the average fighting game on the Game Boy. And I say that because the graphics, the sprites are very large. You can actually see what's going on. I didn't mind the realism sprites in this game as opposed to like Donkey Kong Land, because you can actually see what is going on a little bit better because they're so much larger. And I actually like the graphics, pretty decent for Killer Instinct here. The backgrounds were just beautiful in a lot of cases, especially the one with against Saberwolf there, and also the one against Thunder where you have like the little bridge and a little nature scene behind you. And even the one against Fulgore where you had like the little steampunk background behind him. There were a lot of cool backgrounds in the game. Like I said, the sprites were easy to see. Sometimes they blurred out a little bit, like especially when you got to like Idle at the end. But for the most part, excellent graphics. Obviously not as good as SNES, but for the Game Boy, they're pretty good. And even the controls I felt were very on target for a Game Boy fighter. I mean, anytime you want to do an action, the controls seemed to work perfectly on that. There was never any confusion, or you're pressing a button, it didn't seem to work. The special moves were a little hard to do with just simply 2 buttons and your D-pad. But for the most part, if you don't want to do the special moves, you don't have to do the special moves. And even for players like me, where you get sort of in a tough spot and you start mashing buttons away, a lot of times you end up doing a special move, which was pretty refreshing to actually see the special moves come out. And so the controls I felt were actually pretty well done in the game. I wonder if the game manual actually had like all the special moves listed, because that would have helped a whole lot. Or maybe like if you hit pause, it could have listed the special moves. That would help out a lot as well. I know a lot of newer fighter games do that, where you can sort of look up your special moves. That would help out a lot, because otherwise, when you get in sort of a tough spot, you just resort back to punching. And I would like to see the special moves maybe a little bit more, I don't know, forefront. The soundtrack for the game, especially when you start the game up, the arcade action song, that's like one of the best songs in the game. And I felt it was a really good song, but throughout the game, the soundtrack sort of fell into the background. There were never any songs where I was like, man, that's a really good song or a really bad song. Most of the songs were just pretty average throughout the entire game. But as an overall, for Killer Instinct, as a fighter game for the Game Boy, I feel like it's a good looking game. I feel like it was a pretty fun game, but it is really easy and it's really short if you're just simply going for the main story, which is really all the game has to offer unless you want to link it up and play against someone Game Boy to Game Boy. But if you're going to go down that option of sort of linking all that up and going through all that trouble, just play it on the SNES. I mean, you're going to get a much better experience by going through it that direction. And so Killer Instinct for the Game Boy, if you're just simply on a road trip, you're playing it by yourself, it can be served for like a quick little 30 minutes of fun. But for the most part, it's probably not a lasting title, but it is an interesting title in the Game Boy's library. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above. Be sure and comment a game down below that you'd like to see me cover in the future. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.